What's up, Flannelverse? Who is ready for some Black Friday football? The rare Friday football game should be a probably not that competitive game, but could be a fun one. As you may have noticed, my ring light appears to have stopped working. So for those of you who show up just to see good close-up, detailed view of my face, well lit, sorry, not going to get that today. We're just going to go over the game. As usual, we're going to go position by position. Quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, kickers. At the end, I will play around with lineups, take any questions that you have while you're coming in. If you're not already subscribed, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel by the end of the NFL season. So would appreciate it if you would subscribe. I believe I've also turned on subscriber only mode for commenting in YouTube today. So if you have a comment and you're not subscribed, you will within a minute after subscribing, you will be able to comment. Just had to, man, the bots have been just overwhelming, so had to do something to get rid of them. Hopefully this slows them down, and hopefully you guys can still comment as necessary. But yeah, if you would subscribe, I'd very much appreciate it. Trying to get to 5,000, have a ways to go, kind of a lofty goal, so we'll see. All right, let's start as usual at the quarterback position. Not going to waste a lot of time here. I do want to say hello to people in chat. Dallas, glad to hear that you have ideas about what you want to do. We'll see if we're on the same page. Good to see you, Sean. Everybody else, good to see you guys as usual. All right. Yeah, I know, Adam. Most people are just watching for my face. I know that. All right. Patrick Mahomes, the top projected quarterback on the slate. He might be the top projected player on the slate. Yes, he is, by a good amount. Mahomes projected for 59.5% flex ownership, 26% captain ownership. So what are we looking at? 85% total ownership going to Mahomes. Quite a bit. My guess is that I come in a little bit underweight on that number. Can't really argue with it too much. I mean, again, just look at the projection on Mahomes relative to everybody else. He kind of stands apart from anybody else on this slate. I think generally I'd be more inclined to get away from Mahomes in the captain spot. I think that, as usual, it's easier for pass catchers to outscore quarterbacks. If he's not throwing several touchdowns, he's probably not going to put up a ton of fantasy points. He also just hasn't been generally an awesome fantasy producer for the past couple of years. Now, I will say, I took this note over the first 6 games of the season. Mahomes put up 14.98 fantasy points per game. Then the Chiefs added DeAndre Hopkins. Since they've added DeAndre Hopkins, 21.36 fantasy points per game for Mahomes. So clearly has been better since they've added DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe just happenstance. Who knows if there is actual causation there. But he's been really good in recent weeks. Raiders defense has allowed the 8th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. If you haven't checked it out, this is free on Fantasy Points on the Fantasy Points website. You go to fantasypoints.com. It's under research and reports, and down on the bottom left, schedule adjusted points allowed. If you want to look at the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed per game chart, and you can also sort by just the last 5 games or the full season. It's kind of nifty, and I believe free for everybody right now. So go check that out if you're not already checking it out. All right. Continue on. So Mahomes, I think I come in a little bit underweight. I'm not going flex only. I'll have some Mahomes everywhere. He's also looked like massive chalk on FanDuel. We'll get to FanDuel later on. He looks great, but also 85% is a lot for a quarterback who, runs a little bit, but not that much. Probably doesn't need to be throwing it a ton in this game. They can probably just, score a lot of points on the ground. So I don't know. I think 85%, a bit much for me. I'll be underweight to that on Mahomes. Honestly, probably a little bit light in both the captain spot and the flex spot on Mahomes, but I'm still probably shooting for like 70% Mahomes in my lineups. As far as stacking goes, I do think Mahomes is, you can loosen up your rules a little bit relative to your typical non-rushing quarterback. He runs a little bit. He's not like 20 yards per game or something rusher, but he could spike a little bit higher than that. And he also spreads the ball around quite a bit. So I don't think you necessarily need to have a double stack with Mahomes at captain, as I usually would say for non-rushing quarterbacks, because of the amount that he not only like spreads the ball around, but then also they'll like scheme up plays for throw it to an offensive lineman, that kind of stuff. So there are ways for Mahomes to be the optimal captain without bringing along 2 pass catchers with him. So I think you can loosen up that rule a little bit. But in general, I still want to have Mahomes always stacked and double stacked when I have him at captain. Um, on the other side, we have Aidan O'Connell. I think he looks okay. We'll take a look at the ownership. In the flex, Aidan O'Connell, 33.5% projected ownership. At captain, Aidan O'Connell coming in at 5% projected ownership. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in a little bit light. Sometimes on these showdown sites, you get surprised by the unexciting, kind of bad quarterbacks go lower owned than you expect. So I like these numbers. I think I'll play Aidan O'Connell right around the 40-ish% that the field is projected to play O'Connell, and then just kind of hope that he comes in sub 30% owned or something like that. Because you do see that pretty often on these slates where people just, hand building, don't want to click in Aidan O'Connell. He's just not exciting. Probably not going to score up a ton of points. So I like him. I think he's a pretty strong play at around, if he is around 40%, I think he's a fine play. If he comes in lower than that, which sort of anticipating, I would be really into it. Not that he's particularly good, not that he's a particularly great fantasy asset. Particularly this year, he has not been very good, but he was better last year. Had 20 fantasy points twice in 10 starts last year. So it is, he can put up fantasy points. Chiefs defense has allowed the 12th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. So on the season, pretty tough defense, but they have been a little bit worse. They've been a, bottom third defense over the past 5 weeks. I'm forgetting what the number was exactly. But yeah, it's not actually 12th most, so right around bottom third. Strong enough spot for O'Connell. I think he looks good. I think that I probably will just kind of eat that ownership because I think that there's a chance that it comes in lower owned than that. Desmond Ridder is getting a slight projection at fantasy points. I'm curious if he is on Roto Grinders. Hopefully we don't see Desmond Ridder. I guess this is a spot where you could argue like it's a little bit more likely than usual that Aidan O'Connell gets replaced during the game. So then you might want to. I probably am not going to play any Desmond Ridder, but I think you can make a case for it more so than most showdown slates, because if we do see a couple interceptions from Aidan O'Connell in the first half, Desmond Ridder would take over there. But I don't think he's like a big part of the game plan. He's also 8,600, so not like you're getting a discount there. As far as O'Connell goes, I will treat him like a standard quarterback who doesn't run. So I want him always stacked. When I have him in the captain spot, would prefer to have at least 2 stacking partners in the flex. That can include like Amir Abdullah. But I want to have him double stacked there. Okay. Moving on to running backs. And running backs is where it gets really interesting, really kind of confusing, because we have some uncertain situations here at running back. As Badger says, we have both Alexander Madison and Zamir White out. So good that we know that now. That helps things a little bit, but still a little bit of a murky situation. So we'll go over that a bit. Chiefs been giving up 28 points and 300 yards the last 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean they've been not as good as they were earlier on in the year. Good to see you. Thanks for subscribing. All right. Going to continue. I guess we'll start with the Chiefs side. So Isiah Pacheco making his, I think this is season debut, right? I'm not making that up. Pretty sure this is season debut. I think that he was out before the start of the season, but now that I'm saying it, I want to. Oh, he did play. He played a little bit in the first couple games. I forgot about that. Okay. So not his season debut, but regardless, he's been out since week 2. And now they have Kareem Hunt. They didn't have Kareem Hunt when Isiah Pacheco initially went down. It's a bit of a messy situation. We don't really know what to expect in terms of the breakdown, and you can see that right here. So Fantasy Points has Isiah Pacheco projected for 13 fantasy points, Kareem Hunt projected for 6. Roto Grinders has it Isiah Pacheco projected for 11, Kareem Hunt projected for 11.5. So they actually have Kareem Hunt higher. I couldn't find anything in the coach speak to really give me a great idea of of how they're going to split this up. So I'll read the coach speak that I do have. So head coach Andy Reid said when he was asked about Pacheco, he just said, "If he is good after today, we'll play him." That was a couple days ago. They're playing, so he's going to play. This basically my takeaway is if he's good, we'll play him. But didn't really give any indication of how much they're going to play him. And then when asked how the backfield would shake out with Pacheco back, and this is of course all in the Coach Speak Index Discord, you can check that out if you want to. It's like $5 or $10 a month or something pretty cheap. When asked how the backfield would shake out with Pacheco, offensive coordinator Matt Nagy said, "The best part about that is you don't just have one where they get worn down to 50 or 60% in the third quarter. Now you have two guys who are working off 100%, and they're both really good players with experience who know the offense. When they're up and running, we feel pretty strong about who they are and how much they can help us." So to me, sounds like a split backfield. Doesn't sound like either one of them is going to take over as the primary running back. I also think that they have no reason to tell us which running back to prepare for. So I don't know. I think the range of outcomes is pretty wide. I think could be Kareem Hunt, at least for this game, maintains kind of the stronghold on the top running back spot, and Isaiah Pacheco just works in a little bit as they bring him back in. I think it could be like Isaiah Pacheco is the better running back. Let's just use him, as our primary running back. I think most likely it ends up being a 60-40 split one way or the other. And we just don't know exactly who's going to get the 60 and who's going to get the 40. If I had to guess, I would guess it's going to be Kareem Hunt getting the better work, at least for now, because they're not going to need Isaiah Pacheco to be awesome in this game. Most likely. I think that the Chiefs should be able to handle business pretty easily here. Not drunk, but I have not slept a ton. This is always a tough day of the week for me because I do my main slate breakdown and I end up staying up till like 4 a.m. working on that. And then you add in Friday football game and all of the Thanksgiving stuff. Man, it's been tough going around here. But no, not drunk, not yet. We'll be celebrating Thanksgiving later with my family. I really like both the running backs. So, I mean, it's all dependent on ownership. And I think where you look, it's going to look a little bit different. Here, RotoGrinders has it Kareem Hunt projected for 33% flex ownership, Isaiah Pacheco, 20% flex ownership. In the captain spot, they have Kareem Hunt, 10% projected ownership, Isaiah Pacheco, 3% projected ownership. I believe that is a bit lower in other places. Actually, I'm gonna look real quick and verify that that I'm correct about this. Other places have even lower ownership on Pacheco. Yep. And Hunt. Double check this. Yeah, other places do have lower ownership on both of them. I like both of them. I think that the Chiefs backfield, Keith Ape says Chiefs backfield, the key to the slate. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like this is, they're going to be able to run the football in this game. And I think that they are going to want to run the football. So I'm going to be playing a lot of both Hunt and Pacheco. I think I'll be overweight to both of them. And I think I will have plenty of lineups that have both running backs in there. So that is one way that, and again, we have no real way to know how this is going to go, but my suspicion is that the field is sort of afraid of paying up for an uncertain situation. So I think they're going to come in fairly low owned. Most places are projecting them for fairly low ownership. And I buy it. And I think that it could be a spot that, like, even if they put up 12 and 16 fantasy points, you could need them in this game. Maybe not. But I think that they also have upside for more where they just, run all over them. The running back pie is very big. They want to keep Kareem Hunt happy, show how they can use both their running backs, et cetera, et cetera. So I like the idea of playing both running backs. Also should be fairly efficient. Let's see. What's my note on that? Oh yeah, it's not, maybe I didn't take a note on I did not take a note on the, let's pull it up. Schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Yeah, as you can see here, it's a top 6 matchup for running backs on the season. I think they're going to have a lot of success. I like both of them. Outside of Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, not going to get much ownership. I think at this point with Pacheco back, we can probably forget about Carson Steele. I don't think he's going to be still working in at all. I Could be wrong about that, but I'm not anticipating a ton of workload for Carson Steele. We could still see Samaje Perine in like hurry up offense type situations, 2-minute drill. He's projected for 6% ownership at 3,000. I think that's fine. I might even come in a little bit overweight to that, but I didn't even write him up in my breakdown of this slate because I think that there's a possibility that he just kind of isn't used much now that they have both Hunt and Pacheco, but he's the best pass catching back of the group. So I would expect him to still be used in like the 2-minute drill, maybe some third and long situation. So I think he looks pretty good at 6% ownership. He is 3,000. So you probably need at least like, I don't know, 8-9 fantasy points to get there. So probably needs a touchdown or just, I guess he could be peppered like 4 targets on a drive or 2. So I think he looks okay. And I think Piran looks playable as well. Got a super chat. Appreciate you. D. Owens says, do you think Pacheco plus Hunt plus Tucker in the flex on FanDuel is too thin? Pacheco plus Hunt plus, are you talking about Trey Tucker? I don't think so. As long as you're then finishing off with 2 of the top projected, like Mahomes and Kelce or something, I think that would be fine. Because Tucker, has a decent enough role, and I like both Pacheco and Hunt. I don't think that's too thin on this slate. Score prediction of the Raiders Chiefs game today. I'm so bad at doing, like, I don't sports bet, so but I think actually I could. No, I'm not going to pull it up. I have to do that as part of the Roto Grinders expert survey. I have to answer that question. I'm trying to remember what I put. I think I did like 31-20 or something like that. Chiefs, obviously. How much over the field are you going on Pacheco and flex? He's projected at 19%. I'll probably shoot for like 30-35% Pacheco. Something like that. Thank you, Devin. Hope you also had a great Thanksgiving. Haven't actually celebrated yet. I was working all day yesterday. My wife was sick, so have not celebrated. We'll be celebrating today with my family once I'm done with my 2 shows today. Okay. And somebody said Carson Steele could be like the Patrick Ricard, could have like a random, red zone target or something like that. That is absolutely true. We could see that from Carson Steele, but I don't think I'm going to play any Carson Steele. I'm willing to risk it. Samaje Perine, I think, is the better bet of the tertiary running backs, because getting very low ownership, and he actually like has a skill set that isn't redundant with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. So I think Samaje Perine to me looks pretty good. Okay. On the other side, we have another sort of hairy situation with the Raiders. Again, no Alexander Madison, no Zamir White. So last week we saw Amir Abdullah and Sincere McCormick take over the backfield. Dylan Lobby, I don't think he actually had any carries or anything. I think he's just the punt returner. I'll show you actually what happened last week. So with no Madison and no Zamir White, this is what we saw. Amir Abdullah played 88% of the snaps, ran 72% of the routes, which is really elite. 72% route participation, 6 targets. That's pretty strong. Only 8 carries. So not like in the end, just 14 touches, but really promising to see that he's running all the routes and saw 6 targets, which I guess I haven't looked at the target shares. My guess is that that's 3rd on the team in terms of target share, and the route participation up there with the top on the team. And then you add in some carries, and he's cheap. So to me, Amir Abdullah looks pretty awesome. He is just 5,800 and only coming in at 18.5% ownership. To me, he's a bit of a priority, another player. So I guess I'm playing a lot of the running games here, because 18.5 just feels too little. Like that would be, if you give him, take away the running game completely and look at what he did last week. It was 6 targets on 72% route participation. Like if you see those numbers for a wide receiver, you think, yeah, that's probably the wide receiver 3 on a pretty good team. And 5,800 is a fair price tag for that. And then you throw in 8 carries on top of that, and who knows, maybe he gets targeted a little bit more. I don't know. He looks like a really strong play to me at 5,800, given that he's not really getting much ownership. If he were like getting 50% ownership, then I would stay away. Like there are certainly paths to failure for Amir Abdullah, because the Chiefs defense is a pretty good one. So yeah, like no guarantees that he's going to have a big game here, but coming in low enough owned that he will be a bit of a priority for me, even given the Chiefs defense has allowed the fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs over the past 5 weeks. So over the past 5 weeks, the worst possible matchup for a running back against the Chiefs, and they've been good all year. But he's only 5,800 and could just PPR scam his way there. So I think that, yeah, Amir Abdullah looks pretty awesome here as the lead back on the Raiders. And then on the other side, we have Sincere McCormick, who is 800. Fantasy points projecting him for about 3 fantasy points. I've seen higher elsewhere. Yeah, projected for 4 fantasy points here at Rotogrinders, 23% ownership. He's only 800. He had some quotes. I don't think I saw anything coach speak wise indicating how they want to break down the backfield. Actually, let me just double check that, but I'm pretty sure I checked and didn't see anything about like an increased role or anything for him. But I believe he said that he thinks that he's ready for an increased role. I watched a little clip of him. All right, give me 1 second here. Let me just double check myself here on the coach speak. Maybe we got something since the other running backs were ruled out too. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Okay. Getting there. On the 26th, I guess a few days ago, an offense coordinator, Scott Turner, said Amir Abdullah has a wide skill set. He can run, he can pass, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Says we're going to continue to play multiple backs. We're not just going to lean on one guy. We might lean on the hot hand if it's going, but they all have different skill sets. Sincere did some nice things. We'll see more of him. We'll see more of Amir and some other guys as well. So, and here's an additional quote, I guess, from the 27th from Antonio Pierce, head coach. I'm excited about Sincere McCormick this week. Fired up to see him carry the ball. He was bouncing off guys last week. The energy that he brought to our offense, I really like that. He ran like they were going to tackle him, like they weren't going to tackle him. He ran like a big boy. I'm excited to see him this Friday. He also added, I thought Amir Abdullah did a really good job last week. So, hot hand approach. The role last week was not bad for an $800 player, as we can see here. Last week, Sincere McCormick just 11% of snaps, only played 8 snaps, but he had 5 carries on those 8 snaps. Only 1 route run, so wasn't really used in the passing game. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here as far as different skill sets. I think Amir Abdullah, like the pass catching back pretty clearly. Look at the route participation. Sincere McCormick, just the straight runner. He's only 800. Yeah, I think McCormick looks like a value at 800. Going to get some ownership, obviously, 23%, but I think that's warranted. Like, I don't think we have any better $800 options. I probably eat that ownership. And I'm curious if they're getting captain 2.5% ownership for McCormick in the captain spot. And then Amir Abdullah getting 2% in the captain spot. I think that looks pretty good for Amir Abdullah. That looks like a number that I'm willing to pay to 2% for 8,700 in the captain spot. Amir Abdullah looks good to me. I will have some there. I don't think Dylan Lobby is somebody we really need to be playing. I guess the coach did say, we'll see some other guys as well. Maybe he means Dylan Lobby, but 0 routes run last week, 0 carries. I guess didn't play an offensive snap, was just used as a kick returner. You could take a dart throw in a 150 set. I think Dylan Lobby probably a fine play, but not really a priority. We haven't given any indication that they want to give him a ton of work. He's 1,000, not even the Stone Man. So yeah, Sincere McCormick just looks better there. He was pretty good last week in his first start. I think he had I believe his first carry was like for double-digit yards. I don't know. I think it'll be. I think both these teams. I like the running games across the board, more or less. I like both Pacheco and Hunt. I like McCormick. I like Amir Abdullah. All of them look like pretty strong plays, and I have no issue with playing running backs together from either team, both Hunt and Pacheco. I think that combo is going to be super low owned, having both of them. I also think you can play Sincere McCormick with Amir Abdullah for sure. I think they're going to be playing different roles. Both are like cheap enough that they don't even need to do that much. All right. Excuse me. All right. Let's see. Make that make sense. LOL. KC, best regards defense, but let's play Abdullah. We only get to play players from two teams here, so we have to play somebody from the Raiders, and the Chiefs are just a really good defense, and the running backs are cheap and have strong roles. So I think that they are some of the better options from the Raiders. Okay. Continuing on. Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about any other running backs here. All right, let's move on to wide receivers. Okay. Jakobi Meyers, the top projected wide receiver on the slate. I did just say that the Chiefs defense has been good overall. However, they have not been as good over the past 5 weeks against wide receivers. The note I took, Chiefs defense has allowed the 8th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to wide receivers over the past 5 weeks. Jakobi Meyers, really strong role since Devontae Adams left. 54 targets on 90% route participation in 6 games since Devontae Adams left. So that's 9 targets per game for Jakobi Meyers. Great matchup, great role. He is only $8,000, so cheaper than Brock Bowers, for example. I think Jakobi Meyers in a vacuum, strong place to be. But let's look at the ownership. 35% flex ownership. I think that's about right. Captain, 9.5% ownership. Yeah, neither. I was hoping for lower ownership here. I think both these numbers seem about fair for Jakobi Meyers, not taking any major stand there. Maybe because I want to play the running backs, I end up a little bit light on Jakobi Meyers because these numbers did come in a little bit higher than I was hoping they would. So I probably come in a little bit light on Jakobi Meyers. But again, he's only 8,000, has a really strong role in this offense. It's been, at least over the past 5 weeks, not the worst matchup for wide receivers. So yeah, no issue, obviously, if you want to play Jakobi Meyers, but I probably come in a little bit light there because I want to play more of the running game. Trey Tucker, the wide receiver 2, he's 4,400, so pretty cheap given his role on the team. My note on Tucker, 55 targets in 11 games this year, 55 targets, so 5 targets per game, 82.4% route participation. Certainly has the ability to just break off a splash play and pay off 4,400. So I think Trey Tucker looks like a strong enough play. I, in a vacuum, just prefer Amir Abdullah because I think he is going to get about the same number of targets, and then you add in carries as well, probably 8 to 10 carries, and I think just a better role coming in with. Actually, let's take a look at the ownership before I say that. Fair question from Nate. Just a curious question. At what point do the Raiders just look to the young backs and not worry about a traveled veteran in Abdullah? I don't think it's today. I think Antonio Pierce is playing for his job. So he wants to just play who's going to help him win, most likely. So my guess would be that Abdullah still going to be getting the most looks today, but we'll see. Also sounded like some promising quotes about Sincere McCormick. Ownership for Trey Tucker. Yeah, 26%. So he's coming in higher owned than Amir Abdullah. He is cheaper, but I think I'd be more inclined to go to more of Amir Abdullah. I think this is a fine ownership number, but I may come in a little bit light just because I'd rather play the running backs here in McCormick and Abdullah. But where do they have? Oh yeah, they have 18.5 going to Abdullah. So yeah, I think I end up playing more of the running backs, but hard to argue. I mean, 26%, pretty strong role. 5 targets per game at 4,400 is, not a number that I'm going to be far off of, but my guess is I come in a little bit light on Trey Tucker. DJ Turner, only 2,400, also has, and I guess I'll pull up my notes on DJ Turner. Over the past 7 games, 24 targets on 60.6% route participation. So a little bit more than 3 targets per game. He's out there. He's running some routes. If he scores a touchdown, it's very much if he scores a touchdown, we probably want him. If he doesn't, I guess sub 8% ownership feels fair for a guy getting 3.5 targets per game. I don't know. I'll probably be right around the field. Maybe shoot for being slightly over the field on DJ Turner, because that's pretty low ownership. Team might not score much, so if he is the guy who spikes a touchdown, he's probably going to be the one you want. So yeah, I think sub 8% ownership DJ Turner looks okay to me. All right. Interesting. Eddie says Abdullah is popping like 100% in all optimizers and sims. I definitely make sure you had some lines without him. His ownership will be dumb. Okay, so I mean, if you're thinking that he's not going to come in at 18.5% flex ownership and he's actually going to come in at 45% flex ownership, then yeah, I would probably not like him much at that point. I would probably be a big fade there, but he's not projected for a ton of ownership, so I guess we'll see where the Abdullah. My guess would be that he comes in higher than 18, but like maybe more like 25%, which is, I don't know, still a fair number, but I'm probably going to play it as though he's going to be low owned because, we haven't, usually the ownership projections are going to know better than I am in terms of guessing where a player comes in. And then Ramel Caton, and I guess we can take a look at his usage. Haven't really given him much thought. Last week, 2 routes run, 0 targets. The week prior, he did see a target on 1 of 4 routes, just very much he needs a touchdown probably to be worth playing. My guess is he doesn't make my player pool. All right. I think that's it for the Raiders side. Yep. Okay. Chiefs side. So we have, let's see, I'll pull up my notes here on the Chiefs because we have a sample size now with DeAndre Ayton on the team. DeAndre Ayton himself in 5 games he's been on the Chiefs for 5 games now. In 5 games with the Chiefs, 27 targets on 50.7% route participation for DeAndre Hopkins, so just over 5 targets per game. 5 of his 27 targets have been end zone targets, so they're using DeAndre Hopkins when they get down into the red zone. So that is promising for Hopkins. Raiders defense has allowed the 14th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to wide receivers. So not a bad matchup. Nice that they use him in the red zone. His role has not expanded quite at the rate I sort of thought it would. Just 45% route participation last week. Just 6 targets. So they're targeting him quite a bit when he is out there. But the route participation has remained pretty low since he's been on the Chiefs. It's been pretty low all year since before he was on the Chiefs. So who knows? Maybe he just doesn't have the health. Maybe he can't handle it. Maybe they just don't want to use him more than they need to in the regular season, save him a bit for the playoffs. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't think we can count on DeAndre Hopkins having a full-time role. With that said, they're going to use him mostly in situations like in the red zone. So not a bad role there, but we probably can't count on 12 targets for DeAndre Hopkins anytime soon. As long as he's a part-time player. He's 8,400, 28% ownership. I'd probably come in light on that on DeAndre Hopkins, just because he probably needs, I guess 1 touchdown. If he has 4 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown, do you want him at that point at 8,400? I don't know. I guess that's 14 fantasy points, borderline. So maybe he gets there with 1 touchdown, but you can't really count on DeAndre Hopkins. He's probably not going to get the 100-yard bonus. He's probably not going to have 8+ catches. So you really do need a touchdown, I think, for DeAndre Hopkins to get there. And he's at 8,400, probably going to be somewhat of a stay away from me because he's getting a fair amount of ownership and just doesn't have a full-time role. In the captain spot, DeAndre Hopkins getting 6% ownership. I guess if you want to make the bet that they are going to give him more run here, and he could, see 10 targets, get 8 catches, whatever. At that point, I think he's worth the flyer. But yeah, 34% total ownership. My guess is I come in a little bit light on DeAndre Hopkins, even though like he is pretty clearly their best receiver. They like to use him in the red zone. It's just he doesn't have a full-time role, so you kind of need to spike a little bit of touchdown luck, I think, for DeAndre Hopkins to get there. So 34%, I probably come in a little bit light there. What's up, Tyler? Good to see you. Let's see. Oh, Ramel Caton is inactive. That's a good note from Trevor. So do not play Ramel Caton. Let's see. BP Kelowna thinks Abdullah will be 30% or higher, but maybe 25 to 30. Yeah. All right. So you think he's coming in higher than we are projecting here. Who gets more work today, Pacheco or Hunt? My guess would be Hunt, but I don't feel that strongly about it. I think Pacheco's better, so they might just give him more work right away. Is this true? I missed this. Eddie says if Hopkins plays more than 50% of snaps for the Chiefs, they have to give up a higher draft pick from that trade. I did not know that. Okay, that's an interesting note from Eddie. So he's just not going to ever get higher than like 50% route participation or 60%. That's a good note. I did not know that, Eddie. So yeah, I mean that really does. Okay, I said DeAndre Ayton twice. All right, my bad. DeAndre Hopkins. It's funny. I definitely am very much more in the football mindset than NBA mindset as of right now. But yeah, I think DeAndre Hopkins. I guess it is good that they're obviously using him when he's out there. He's had a pretty strong role in terms of like targets when he's on the field. He's getting targeted a bit. Did have the one game where he spiked 9 targets and got to 62% route participation. But the past few weeks it's been 5 targets per game over the past 3. A little bit tough to get there when you're only getting 5 targets per game at 8,400. So I probably come in light on DeAndre Hopkins. Xavier Worthy, 7,400. That's had a stronger role since Rashee Rice went down. Actually, since the Chiefs bye week. Let me pull up my note on Xavier Worthy. 6 games since the Chiefs bye week, 33 targets, so 5.5 targets per game on 70.2% route participation. I don't know. He's not like a huge priority for me either. But being targeted just as much as DeAndre Hopkins. He's obviously has the explosive play upside if you can just stay in bounds. 4% projected ownership at captain for Worthy. In the flex projected for 25% ownership. I think those numbers are probably fine. Like they don't stand out to me. If I have to get a little bit light there to play more of the running backs, I probably will. But I think those are fair numbers for Xavier Worthy. Also not exactly a full-time player, but again, he's been so close to making big plays recently. I think that he obviously is capable of doing so. Okay, that's a good note. Crutches said another place has Abdullah 10% at captain, 44% at flex. So I looked at a few sources here, did not look at Saber Sim. Let me just double check. Yeah, this place has him. All right, he is getting a higher ownership basically everywhere other than Roto-Grinders, which is probably correct and makes him less of a priority if he's going to be getting ownership. So that's kind of a bummer because I think that's true. Like I think it's correct that he probably will get higher ownership. Now, again, there was a spot. I don't remember what it was, but last week there was one that I thought the number seemed crazy low at Roto-Grinders and ended up being correct. So who knows? Maybe it does. He comes in later than we're anticipating, but that is good to know that other places don't have him being so low owned. Outside of those two, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Judas Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson. I don't know if I'm going to any Mecole Hardman, but Smith-Schuster and Watson, we can look at their roles in recent weeks. It's been, I don't know, same as usual, like unexciting, but like they're on the Chiefs. They can obviously get there. Oh. Pull this back up. Don't know what happened there. All right. So last week, again, we're seeing a split here. Justin Watson, 55.3% route participation, 2 targets last week. He's capable of splash plays. Juju Smith-Schuster, 49% route participation last week, 2 targets. Like neither of them has a great role. This is, I kind of hate Chiefs showdown slates because you get so many of these players where it's like, yep, it runs about 50% of routes, probably see a handful of targets, and if he scores a touchdown, you'll want him. Like they have so many of those guys. And Mecole Hardman last week, just 2 routes run, 0 targets. The week prior, 7 routes run, 2 targets. I don't know. He is the, like, they sometimes do like gimmicky stuff to get him the ball, give him opportunities. So I think he's probably, I don't know. Let's take a look at the ownership before I go on. Correct, Jeff. Aidan O'Connell starting. All right. As far as the Chiefs tertiary receivers go, Juju Smith-Schuster, 12% ownership. Justin Watson, 10% ownership. Mecole Hardman, 4% ownership. Again, we have, let me see if I need a reset here. Just going to refresh the whole page just in case. See if anything changes here. Okay, Amir Abdul up to 25% owned now. So that is worth noting. And where's Sincere McCormick? 18%. So we saw a little bit of a flippening there, right? McCormick was higher before. So that's interesting. Makes McCormick more interesting to me. Juju Smith-Schuster still at 11% ownership. Justin Watson, 9%. These both feel like numbers that I want to be overweight on, I think. Like they're low enough and the price is cheap enough with the Chiefs being able to do whatever they want. I think I'd like to be overweight there, but then it's a question of where do I want to get away from ownership? I guess like Trey Tucker at 24%, maybe I want to get away from that a little bit. But there are not many plays on the slate. I guess I'll be underweight to Mahomes, so that'll help. But I haven't really found many spots so far that I think I'm going to be fading much. I'll probably be under 26% Matthew Wright. I guess there's one. So I'd like to be overweight here. I don't know if I'm going to be able. I'd like to at least get to around 10% each of Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson. Juju, I mean, he looked like he was picking up a pretty strong role. Then he was out for a few weeks. Let's look at his game log here. Remember this, the 8 target game in week 5 for Juju Smith-Schuster. Then they had their bye, came back in week 7. I believe he got hurt in game in week 7. So he hasn't really, and then he's been ramping back up. Week 11, 29%, week 12, 49%. So it's possible that Juju Smith-Schuster is just kind of working his way back from an injury, and that he'll actually get up to like 70% route participation here. I don't know if I really expect it, but I think it's possible that he does eat in. I think it's more likely that the trend continues for Juju to get more and Justin Watson to get less. But I don't know how likely that is. But I think he looks like a fine play at pretty low ownership at 4,000. Justin Watson also, like even if his role does reduce a little bit, he's only getting 9% ownership and he's only 2,800. And he's been pretty, like, for as long as he's been on the Chiefs, he's basically had a like pretty reasonable role, like not elite, but look at the route participation all season. He's been, 40 to 70% route participation. So he probably stays around there, sees a couple targets. He's only 2,800. So I think he's fine. Not a huge priority. Mecole Hardman, I guess you're just kind of counting on a gimmick touchdown probably for Mecole Hardman. He is only 2,000. So touchdown might get him there, but at 4% ownership, I think he's a fine play, not a huge priority, but probably I want to match the field there. I think that does it for the wide receivers. I'll check in on questions, move on to tight ends. JJ says I can't see Watson getting anything. Yeah, I mean, don't feel like you need to play Justin Watson. I think in a 150 set, I would be worried about not playing him at all. But yeah, if you're only playing 20 lineups, no issue if you want to fade him. All right. Bowers will wreck you today. It won't be wrecking me because I'll be playing Bowers. All right. Let's see. Tight end. Travis Kelce and Brock Bowers, two of the top projected plays on the slate. As you can see here, number 3 and 4 in terms of projection at Roto Grinders, 2 and 3 at fantasy points. Either way, they look like really strong plays on this slate. Bowers, I guess we can start. Wait, who's the higher? We'll start with Kelce. Kelce is the at least at fantasy points. Kelce is the higher project. He's also cheaper. Kelce's role has been awesome ever since Rashee Rice went down in week 4. Kelce 39% projected ownership at flex. At captain, 13% ownership. So a little bit over 50% total ownership going to Travis Kelce. Really kind of hard to argue with that. Travis Kelce is just the role has been great since Rashee Rice went down. 74 targets, so eight games, including the game that Rashee Rice went down early. There's been 8 games, 74 targets for Travis Kelce in this game. So, over 9 targets per game for Travis Kelce, 79.9% route participation. The Raiders defense has allowed the second most scheduled adjusted fantasy points per game to tight ends. So the role is great. The matchup is elite. Everything looks great for Travis Kelce. I will be playing a good amount of Travis Kelce. I think one of the better captain options. Again, gonna get some ownership at captain. Kelce coming in at 13% ownership. I think that's fair. Like I don't think I'm going to be getting more than that necessarily. Probably not. Probably right around there for Kelce at captain. But yeah, I think if Kelce makes it into 50 to 60% of my lineups in total, I will be happy with that. We also have Noah Gray, whose role has been much better in recent weeks than earlier in the year. I think actually basically like since the bye week for the Chiefs, Noah Gray has had a really strong role. I'll pull that up. So yeah, early in the season, week 5 down to 27% participation. They're buying week 6 and then comes back up to 47%, 45%, 50, 47, 68, 66, and then 49% route participation. So he's out there a fair amount. Also has 9 targets over the past 2 weeks. So not like a 6 target per game type player, but I mean he's getting, I guess, over the past 2 weeks 4.5 targets per game on around 50, a little over 50% route participation in general. Again, great matchup for tight ends. So I like Noah Gray coming in at 20% ownership. Feels totally reasonable given his recent role on the Chiefs. We just saw last week the big blow up game for Noah Gray. He's only 3,600. The ownership is reasonable. Yeah, I think it looks like a strong play at 3,600. Again, don't think I'm going to be far off from the field there. Probably not playing him at captain. He's getting 2% at captain. I guess he's playable, but not going to force it in if I don't naturally get to any Noah Gray at captain. And then Peyton Hendershot, I don't think he's really done much since he's been on the Chiefs. 5 routes run, 0 targets last week, 1 target in each of the 3 prior games. So again, classic backup tight end. Gets a touchdown, you'll probably want him. So you could sprinkle him in a 150 set, but no reason to think that he's going to have any kind of bigger role here. On the other side, Brock Bowers is 10,000, so a little bit more expensive than Kelce. Projects better here at Roto Grinders, worse at fantasy points. Their projections are pretty similar though. Bowers getting 33% flex ownership. Captain getting 9.5%. I think I'd probably like to be overweight 9.5% at captain. Really around the field flex on Brock Bowers. I think he looks like a really strong play. It's one of the few places the Chiefs defense is vulnerable also. So that, oh no, the bots got in. Even with subscriber only chat on, the bots got in. Sad. Okay. the matchup is good for Brock Bowers. Chiefs defense has allowed the 5th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to tight ends on the season. Again, depending on who you ask me, they may be just kind of decide to cover, decide who they want to stop, and let the rest of the team beat them, which often is the tight ends. But they kind of, from what I understand, force teams to go to the middle of the field, which kind of benefits from the tight end. So it's a great spot here. Who knows if they'll play it a little bit differently with Brock Bowers being like the top pass catching option on the Raiders. It's possible they change their game plan a little bit, but I think most likely they continue to let them go to the middle of the field. So I think Brock Bowers will have a really strong role here. And I want to be overweight at captain at, getting sub 10%. I'll want to be over 10% Brock Bowers at captain. Looks like a really strong play. Outside of Bowers, Michael Mayer, I still don't know what happened with Michael Mayer. He was like out for half the season for personal reasons. I don't think I ever heard what happened there, but he's back now. He's been back for a couple weeks. So I don't think it was injury related at all. The route participation in week 11, 44%, week 12, 30%, has seen 5 targets over those past 2 games. I'm hopeful that Michael Mayer takes on a bigger role as the season goes on. Not promising to see that the route participation actually went down last week, but he was a 2nd round pick last year. This one is personal to me because I drafted a lot of Michael Mayer in best ball, thinking this is a 2nd round pick and nobody wants to draft him, so you can get him for free. And he just then missed half the season for unknown reasons. So I still think that he's a really strong player, and maybe this was just kind of a blip in the radar. Maybe he ends up, it wouldn't be that shocking to see him get up to 55%, 60% route participation, use 2 tight end sets, etc. Like, I don't think he's eating into Brock Bowers at all, but like they could do 2 tight ends more often. So I'm hopeful that he will see a bigger role at some point. But we don't really have any indication that that's the case. Maybe I'm just wish casting it a little bit. Being projected for just 5.5% ownership. So that's the reason, really. He's only 1,600, projected for 5.5% ownership. I think that he's one of the better like tight end bets on a showdown slate. So he probably is the classic backup tight end where you need a touchdown to get there. But I think he's a little bit more likely to see 5 targets in a game than the typical backup tight end, and just like see an increase in route participation. So I think he is a fairly strong bet at 1,600 at just 5.5% ownership. That is a play that I would like to be overweight on Michael Mayer. Again, probably not playing him in the captain spot, but at flex, I really like him. I'll be probably double the field on Michael Mayer is where I'm aiming to be about. All right, that does it for tight ends. So then we just have kickers and defenses. Again, Matthew Wright getting 26% ownership. I get it. Chiefs favored. Expected to score a lot of fantasy points, a lot of points, which often leads to kickers having big games, but he is 5,000. He's not free. Probably need at least like 3 field goals to want him. So I don't know. At 26% ownership, I'll just bet on touchdowns instead of field goals. So I think I will be somewhat fading Matthew Wright at 26%. Not like, obviously not full fading, but if I get to 15% Matthew Wright, which would allow me to get overweight on some other players that I like, I think that's kind of the goal here, I think, for me with Matthew Wright. Daniel Carlson coming in at 15.5% ownership. I think that's fine. Again, Chiefs probably win this game, which means they're probably not kicking field goals once they get down much. Maybe the Raiders can't keep it close, but I think 15% feels about fair. You often, I've been saying, I think kickers are going under owned. I don't think that's under owned. I think that's, if anything, I might come in even a little bit light on 15%. Daniel Carlson. Chiefs defense is 6,800. That is just a massive tag on a defense. Getting 21% ownership in the flex. Let's see, what are they getting at captain? Only 2% at captain. So I probably come in overweight to 2%. I don't know. They're so expensive. Maybe I don't mean that. No, I think I probably do come in overweight to 2% at captain. 21% at flex. At that price tag, I think I'd rather bet against it. Just like hope that they don't score any touchdowns, and it's going to be hard for them to pay off that price tag without scoring touchdowns. So I think I probably end up under the field at flex. But I think maybe I get to 4% at captain. I think that's kind of a strong bet at their price tag. Like, could the Chiefs defense outscore Xavier Worthy? Who is more likely to score more fantasy points? I mean, I guess we can. The projection, Xavier Worthy projected for 8.6, Chiefs defense 8.5. Like, I don't know. I think that they are just as likely to see it. And you don't just need them to outscore Xavier Worthy. You need them to put up a big score if you want them at captain. But I think they're capable of putting up like a pick six and 4 sacks and a fumble recovery. I don't know. So I think I like them at captain. Probably coming a little bit underweight at flex. And then Raiders defense, 14% owned. They're only 3,200. So I think it's a fine play. Yeah, you got Samaje Perine at 3,000. Could the Raiders defense? They could certainly outscore Samaje Perine. I don't know, but again, like often I see 3,200 for a defense at 14%. Usually I want to be overweight to that. I don't know that I necessarily want to in this case. I probably eat it, but probably no more than what the field is getting there for the Raiders defense. All right, I'm going to play with some lineups, but first going to take a brief look at FanDuel because I know we have a few people, so this will just take a minute or two. Just looking briefly at the FanDuel slate here, see if anything stands out. I believe Aidan O'Connell is only $5,000 on FanDuel, so that will immediately stand out if that is the case. All right, so FanDuel projected ownership here. See, this is nuts. 48.5% to Mahomes at MVP. That would probably be nearly a full fade for me. I get it. Mahomes projects the best on the slate by far, but I think somebody is going to outscore Mahomes more than 50% of the time, way more than 50% of the time. So I think Mahomes to me this would be a fade for me. He would not be, certainly if I'm making one lineup, he would not be the MVP I put in there. I would like just about anybody else. Throw in Kelce, throw in Bowers, throw in Hunt, throw in Pacheco. Maybe even O'Connell. You do need whoever you put in there to outscore him. If Mahomes is in the top lineup, you need the highest scoring player. Since there's no salary multiplier on FanDuel, you need the highest scoring player to be in your MVP spot. But I think it'd be like you can see so many ways for somebody to outscore Mahomes. So I'd rather take a bet on specifically. I think Kelce and Bowers look great. Jakobi Meyers to an extent. I also like the running backs, both Kareem Hunt and Pacheco. I guess O'Connell. I think it's pretty unlikely that O'Connell outscores Mahomes, but it's possible. Like they could just run it a lot. So I think O'Connell probably a fine play at captain or at MVP on FanDuel. At flex. So again, O'Connell is only $5,000. He is the Stoneman. He was not priced to be the starting quarterback. So he looks great. Obviously, 44% ownership. I probably want to be even overweight to that because at 5,000, like what do you really need? On FanDuel, you need like 8 fantasy points. He's certainly capable of putting up 8 fantasy points. Obviously, no guarantee, but coming in low enough owned that I would not lock, but like come pretty close to locking Aidan O'Connell because that's just too low owned for a $5,000 starting quarterback. Mahomes 50%. I'm much more willing to eat the Mahomes in the flex. I think 50% seems fine there. Kelce 38%, Kareem Hunt 34%, Brock Bowers 34%. Again, probably coming a little bit underweight on DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, both Chiefs running backs coming in a little bit higher here. I still think they're fine plays, but not as bigger priorities. Abdullah 18% here. Now I wonder if it's different elsewhere, but later wouldn't surprise me if he does come in later on FanDuel than DraftKings because it is half PPR. So that seems fine. Sincere McCormick only $5,000 coming in at just 8% ownership. So I would also want to be above weight on Sincere McCormick here. You could make some nice lineups and leave some salary on the team on FanDuel, I think. Mayer, just 1.5% ownership at 6K. Looks pretty good to me. Justin Watson, 4%. Smith-Schuster, 6%. Yeah, we have some nice plays. Chiefs defense, only 9%. I mean, can that be right? 9% projected ownership going to the Chiefs defense on FanDuel. There would just load up. Like if they're going to be sub 10%, I would be all in on Chiefs defense on FanDuel. I'm actually going to look one other place real quick because that seems like absurdly low to me. All right, this is not working. Give me 1 second. Okay, yeah, that seems like an outlier at Roto Grinders. Not expecting the Chiefs defense to be low owned on FanDuel. Chris Astro says Ian Rappaport just reported Pacheco is a full go. Yeah, I mean, regardless of what you think of Ian Rappaport, I think that that's true. Like, I think he is a full go, but that doesn't mean he's going to have a full time role necessarily. It just means like he could, like he's capable, he is ready to go, but I don't think he is necessarily going to be their full time player. All right, let's move on. I have not actually pulled up my DraftKings here. Move this back to DraftKings before I forget. All right, let's make a lineup or two. I'll take any questions you have. We've got 18 minutes left, so I'll be quick here. So I gotta go make my own lineups. Let's go Bowers at captain. I want to try, let's just try the double defense thing for the Chiefs. Sorry, not double defense. You can tell how tired I am. I'm misspeaking constantly. The double running back thing for the Chiefs. And let's throw in $800 Sincere McCormick. So we've got 3 running backs in there. Now I could go Kelce. I guess I could play one of Kelce or Mahomes. At this point, it's probably going to be Kelce because I don't have any other pass catchers on the Chiefs. So unless I guess I could go like Juju Smith-Schuster and Mahomes or something like that. It's one way I could do this lineup, fill this out. If I throw Kelce in there, then I have 6,400 left. So I couldn't go Kelce and Chiefs defense. I could go. Now here's one where I could go Matthew Wright. I mean, I guess I could do, instead of going Kelce, I could have gone Aidan O'Connell with Bowers there and then go to Chiefs defense for that. That's a bit unique just in terms of the construction of it, like having Bowers and Aidan O'Connell and the Chiefs defense in there probably gets to be a little bit unique. I kind of like this for a large field GPP. I think this lineup makes some sense. Chiefs are just, running it down their throats the entire game with Pacheco and Hunt. The Raiders trying to keep up with Aidan O'Connell throwing to Brock Bowers. McCormick just kind of a cheap piece. And then, of course, Chiefs defense, if they're throwing a lot, the Chiefs defense more opportunities for takeaways. So I think this one actually makes some sense for a large field GPP. Check in on any questions you guys have, comments, etc. Bot. All right. Would you play Gray and Kelce? Yeah, absolutely. No issue playing Gray and Kelce together. They'll be on the field together. Both have strong roles. Bowers or Meyers on DraftKings single entry. I don't think there's a wrong answer there, but probably Bowers is. I'm going to be playing more of Bowers, I think. All right, let's try something. What could be different here? Sounds like Amir Abdullah is going to get some captain ownership, according to other places, so it makes him less of a priority here. What else could we try? Kareem Hunt captain. Maybe I'll do one without Pacheco and just assume that it is Kareem Hunt getting the bulk of the carries as Pacheco makes his way back. Now this one I will do Amir Abdullah. I guess Chiefs defense, some correlation there with Kareem Hunt doing well. Probably need one more cheap piece here. We can do Noah Gray and Travis Kelce in the same lineup, and then throw in Brock Bowers, and we've got 700 left over. Kareem Hunt in the captain spot with the Chiefs defense. We've got both Chiefs tight ends, so pulling a lever that a lot of people might hesitate to do. We've got Brock Bowers in there as well, so triple tight end lineup and Chiefs defense paired with Hunt. Amir Abdullah one off, leaves some salary on the table. I think that looks like a pretty strong large field GPP lineup also. All right, I think that does it for this stream because I need to go make my lineups. And I'm not seeing any other questions there. Really appreciate you guys. Again, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, would appreciate it. Trying to get to 5,000 by the end of the NFL season, and kind of lagging right now. So would appreciate it if you guys can get me back on track. Yeah, you can play McCormick at captain. I probably won't play a ton of McCormick at captain, but I think he's playable there if you want to. I believe Peyton Hendershot is available. I've not seen any reason to believe that he's not, but I can double check that. Oh wait, never mind. Placed him on injured reserve. Was he getting a projection? I thought I saw he was getting a projection there. So apologies. Do not play Peyton Hendershot at all. I mean, I think I was not playing him regardless. But yeah, he should not have any kind of projection because he is not playing. He is on injured reserve. Okay, that's going to do it for this show. I got to get going. Appreciate you guys. Let's win some money. Give me a shout out on got a shout out after last showdown slate we did. Somebody won in the big tournament, so that was fun to see. Let me know if you do win the big tournament. Would love to hear that. All right, let's get going. Yeah, Bowers. I take the over on 60 for Bowers. All right, going to go make my lineups. Appreciate all of you guys. Not you. That's a good call. Yeah, Ferkster is the tight end 3 if you want to throw one in for GPP. Okay, we're getting going. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your Black Fridays. Enjoy your weekends. I will see you on Sunday night for Sunday Night Football, 85 minutes prior to lock. Later, guys.